The first note fell into the city like a held breath. No one noticed the silence until it shattered everything. The square was alive with motion, tourists drifting past glowing shop windows, couples laughing, streetlights humming softly against the night air. At the center stood a lone violinist, head bowed, bow resting gently on the strings. He did not play. He waited. The stillness around him felt deliberate, almost heavy, as if the city itself had paused to listen. Then the bow moved. A single note rose, pure, trembling, fragile. Conversations faded. Footsteps slowed. Phones lowered. The melody did not rush. It unfolded slowly, weaving sorrow and wonder into the cold evening air. People turned instinctively, drawn by something they could not name. It wasn't volume that commanded attention, it was restraint. From the edges of the square, another violin answered. Then another. A pianist stepped forward, keys whispering harmony beneath the strings. No announcement. No warning. Just music blooming where silence had been moments before. Faces shifted from curiosity to disbelief. A child tugged her mother's sleeve. An old man removed his hat. Strangers stood shoulder to shoulder, united by a sound that seemed to speak directly to memory and longing. The melody swelled, echoing off stone walls and glass facades, filling the space where noise once lived. Above them, city lights flickered like distant stars, reflecting in widened eyes. The music carried grief and hope in equal measure, as if reminding everyone of something forgotten but deeply missed. And as more musicians stepped into the light, strings, piano, distant choral voices, the crowd realized this was no ordinary performance. This was the moment before everything changed. Just when the crowd thought they understood the moment, the music grew a heartbeat. And the city leaned closer. The melody deepened, layering itself like a secret slowly being revealed. The pianist's hands moved with quiet precision, each chord grounding the soaring violins above. From behind cafe columns and along the stone steps, more musicians emerged, cellists, violists, a soft choir forming in the shadows. No one spoke. No one needed to. The sound said everything. People began recording, but many stopped midway, lowering their phones as if the music deserved more than a screen. A woman wiped tears she didn't expect. A young man closed his eyes, swaying slightly, letting the rhythm carry him somewhere far from the noise of the world. The violinist at the center lifted his bow higher now, drawing longer, stronger strokes. What began as fragility transformed into quiet power. The notes no longer whispered, they resonated, filling the square with warmth. Even the wind seemed to slow, as if unwilling to interrupt. A choir finally joined, voices rising like light through stained glass. No lyrics, only breath and tone, human voices blending into the instruments. The effect was overwhelming yet gentle, pressing emotion into every corner of the space. Strangers exchanged glances, sharing an unspoken understanding. This moment was rare, and it was theirs. Traffic noises faded into irrelevance. The city's pulse aligned with the tempo of the music. For a few suspended minutes, deadlines, worries, and loneliness dissolved. Silence hadn't disappeared. It had transformed, becoming the space between notes, the breath between heartbeats. And the crowd, now fully captive, sensed the performance was still rising, and something unforgettable was about to arrive. Then the first chill ran through the crowd. Because this was no longer just music, it was a confession. The tempo shifted, almost imperceptibly at first. The violins climbed higher, their voices trembling with urgency, while the piano struck deeper, heavier chords that echoed like distant thunder. The choir swelled behind them, no longer hidden, now fully revealed, dozens of voices rising together, filling the square with raw human emotion. People stood frozen. Some pressed hands to their mouths. Others felt tears fall freely, unashamed. The melody reached into memories, loss, love, longing, and pulled them into the open. This wasn't a performance demanding applause. It was an experience demanding surrender. The lead violinist stepped forward, bowed dancing with fierce control. Every stroke carried purpose, every pause felt intentional. When the music briefly dropped to near silence, the entire square held its breath. Even the birds perched above seemed to wait. Then the crescendo came. Sound surged like a wave, crashing through the stillness with breathtaking force. Violins cried. The piano roared. Voices soared skyward, wrapping the city in something ancient and powerful. The music spilled outward, echoing down streets and alleyways, reaching people who hadn't even seen the musicians, yet stopped anyway. A man fell to his knees. A couple clutched each other. Children stared wide-eyed, sensing they were witnessing something they would remember for the rest of their lives. The city had surrendered, not to noise, but to feeling. And just when it seemed the music could not rise any higher, it pulled back, as if preparing one final, devastating truth. The music vanished. And somehow, the silence was louder than before. Bows froze midair. Fingers hovered above keys. Voices faded into nothing. The sudden absence of sound hit the square like a held breath stretched too long. No applause followed. No one dared break it. The crowd stood suspended, trapped in the echo of what had just been taken away. In that quiet, something shifted. People became aware of their own breathing, their own hearts pounding in rhythm with the memory of the melody. The lead violinist slowly lowered his instrument, eyes closed, as if offering the silence back to the city. Then, softly, the piano returned. Single notes fell like footsteps in fresh snow. One violin answered, then another, not in power but in vulnerability. The choir did not return yet. Instead, the instruments spoke alone, telling a gentler story, one of healing after heartbreak. A streetlight flickered overhead, casting warm halos on faces now calm, reflective. Tears were wiped away. Hands found hands. Strangers stood closer than before, no longer separate lives, but shared witnesses to something sacred. The melody rebuilt itself slowly, deliberately, each layer added with care. It no longer demanded surrender. It offered comfort. The music seemed to say, "You are not alone. You never were." Even those watching from windows above leaned forward, unwilling to miss a single breath of sound. Time felt distorted, stretched thin, as if the city itself had stepped outside the ordinary flow of moments. And deep within the rising harmony, the audience sensed it. The final movement was coming. The final note did not end. It stayed, alive in every heart standing there. The full ensemble returned at once. Violins soared, the piano thundered with warmth, and the choir rose in a single, unified breath. The music no longer carried sorrow or tension, it carried release. Every note felt like light breaking through cloud, like dawn after a long, sleepless night. The lead violinist lifted his bow for the last time, drawing out a note so pure it seemed to glow. The choir held it, voices trembling but strong, and then, slowly, gently, everything faded into silence. For one eternal second, nothing happened. Then the square erupted. Applause crashed like a wave, cheers echoing between buildings, hands clapping until they burned. Some laughed through tears. Others embraced strangers without hesitation. The musicians lowered their instruments, smiling softly, humbled by the response. This wasn't celebration alone, it was gratitude, shared and overwhelming. Phones rose again, but now to capture faces, not just performers. People knew they had witnessed something unrepeatable. Not because of perfection, but because of feeling. As the crowd slowly dispersed, the city returned to motion. Traffic resumed. Conversations restarted. Yet something had changed. The noise felt different now, less harsh, as if the music had rewritten the rhythm of the place. Long after the musicians vanished into the streets, the sound remained, in memories, in quiet moments, in the spaces between everyday noise. And whenever silence returned, it no longer felt empty.